Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to talk about it, debate it in a fair, honest, non-violent, God-pleasing way. This episode could be long. It's based on a phone call I had this morning with RJ that I did record. It's simply an easier way for us to talk in like a Zoom call. But I might want to ask his permission to play it because it's everything is groundbreaking, everything is historic. What what about coincidence? Coincidence a lot of times, but there are coincidences in the Bible. So we're going to look at some of those. And what if our God is a God of coincidence? And at the end, some of the crazy things in our life, that's the way it was supposed to be. It We're going to run into some coincidences. I have to show the thing and do the, like, look, here's the disclaimer. I'm not going to be stepping on anybody's right to, to make the money. Look at here. I looked up this thing. I asked, is society's consensus teaching women should be in better? They're better than men. Well, they got plenty of images that seem to, question that. Women are better than men. Well, that's just putting it right there. 5 proven reasons women are better writers than men. It's the world we live in. The hand that rocked the cradle gets no blame. Better multitaskers, better at investing. There's nothing. They're better leaders. But the computer is sure that no, it only women wants to be equal. I asked them, how come some women compare their suffering to genocide? Women may compare their suffering to genocide because in their lived experience, it encompasses systematic targeting. Well, who doesn't feel that, especially if you're a Christian? Long-term psychological and social destruction. That's what they believe has happened to them, and they compare it. Women compare what happened to the Native Americans, the Hispanics, the blacks, the genocide in all around the Middle Ages, World War II, everywhere on Earth. They compare it, the reproductive violence, and they consider it that way to an erasure from historical memory. While not equivalent in scale to state or regime level genocides, this perspective reflects a deeply gendered understanding of collective and structural violence. So recognizing this is very crucial because there needs to be trauma informed justice because women been wronged, like the people that get genocided and what happened to the blacks and they couldn't vote. The where's the black pro women voters? The pro women voters back in the 19 teens, they didn't care about black voters. A lot of their feminism is a one-way street. Historical acknowledgement in every way, shape, or form, and a gender sensitive policy formulation. Who thinks we're not living through that? Compound trauma, long term consequences. They feel bad about it. Systematic, targeted. They talk about the Rwandan genocide. 500,000 women were raped in the presence of it's horrific. Bangladesh, widespread sexual assaults. That's why they think that's the genocide. And then they killed the men and the women because they got whipped into a frenzy. Nobody wakes up today and says, I want to go have a genocide. There's this school I looked at today, costs almost $70,000 a year. It's a high school, but some people get, generous financial grants. But this is where all the famous people go to high school. A 14-year-old girl jumped out the window there the other day. Here's another investment accounts for kids joining Dell. This what's made me want to look up that Ray Dalio. This guy, he's slipping under the radar as someone you got to keep an eye on. Hey, look, there's a picture of Bill Clinton reportedly brought Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell as his guest to the Moroccan King's 2002 wedding. I was here to read this story about Ray Dalio, and I thought this video would be a story about Ray Dalio, but it was a story about, like the Lord, by coincidence, wanted me to look into Ray Dalio, the billionaire who backed Trump's investment accounts for kids. This is from today. So I thought, well, wow, he's making the news, and I wanted to look him up. I wanted to look up the caravans of Tima. And now, because I just worried, I want to make sure I'm sharing, because there's been times, okay, nobody's saying I'm not sharing, where I have been sharing, thought I was sharing, but oh no, contraire. Where was I? I don't want to start over, but I will, because we got these things here. Chapin School, Ray Dalio, way high. If you're going to get way high, and I'm not talking about you guys out there drinking a 6-pack in under a half hour, or smoking 14 joints in one day. If you want to get way high, it means and there was. And there was. And as I look over here, I don't even see a way or a high in these. There's a hey, but not a way. So I kept looking, found some. This guy says straddling the fence between the first and the second half of the century. It's talking about how popular Blavatsky and Theosophy is. Are your eyes are not deceiving you? That's 1.8 million views. That's a lot. The shift point. It's evident to them today, or at least 11 years ago. We're in the middle of a shift point. Oh, they're going to figure out who the Brown University is. It equated to the MIT professor. Now, that's one we need to talk about, because this guy, the MIT professor, he was writing a book about cold fusion and how they blew that up, and that really was something to it. And the same guy that blew up cold fusion is also the guy that tried to climb on his fame for blowing up cold fusion and saying there's no thermite in the Twin Towers. I think his name was Dr. Steve something. Not Steve Young. That's like the football player, but it's something like that. I think he was from that same Mormon background. That's why I get them confused. So that's an atmospheric river. That's what's happening. You're going to get flood, and they're going to get snow on it. Hey, there's your. I hope that the thumbnail worked out. It looks like it might have cut off. Why are we being judged this fourth time before the great white throne? Well, since Satan's been loosed, it's been cover up flat earth, put a globe on every desk, and white power. Make the world hate us, so they're going to be trained to kill you. Here's the Colorado Mafia. They had informants. They knew everybody down to the dice and card cheat mob. and the bookmakers and layoff betters, everybody was in on it. It was white power until they had to stop it in the 70s. Adrenochrome, that's their thing. You're not going to get over. That's Bruce Willis. That's a carrot. That's Elijah Wood. No, not the kid from Harry Potter. Elijah Wood, the other guy that's in the Rob Reiner movies. Satanic ritual abuse. Look, there's been a 12,000 unsubstantiated cases, Wikipedia would have you know. They didn't do it. Yeah, I believe they did. That's my opinion. I can say that. It's not unsubstantiated. It's unreported. These guys do it. We all know they do it. We're going to act like we don't know they do it. Keep studying it. Never decide, wow, we're cornered. I got to get out of the city. Always in the back of your mind, you're going to make it heroically and show your wife it was worth it sticking with me, baby. These guys, I can fight the zombies. I can fight the other people looking for our food. Bring them on. Bring them on. Stand behind me, honey. You gonna do it, Ma? You do that for 4 or 5 months. You still got the bullets. You still got the time. You got enough water. Honey, you didn't soak these beans long enough. We're running low on water. Well, bring on more zombies. I got to prove to you I'm ready to die. Look at here's what a way the bow and arrows. This is important to me. A record of how boys and men trained to use bows with high draw weights survived from the reign of that King Henry VII, who said, Hugh Latimer, quote from him, my bowman yeoman father taught me how to draw, how to lay my body in the bow, not to draw with strength of arms as divers other nations do. I had my bows brought me according to my age and strength. As I increased in them, so my bows were made bigger and bigger. For men shall never shoot well unless they be brought up to it. It is one of those things. Bending the bow is not the same as drawing a bow. The bow and arrows they found when they raised the ship, the Mary Rose, what they call the draw rate, what kind of muscles you need, are estimated between 100 to over 185 because they don't want to tell you it goes up astronomically, like to where they were not 15-foot giants, they were 6 foot regular people who were strong enough to pull a 180-pound bow and arrows, and the boat was full of them. The Mary Rose, still some of them never been issued in their case, and maybe 2 or 3 people in the world can fire a 150 to 160-pound bow in the world today. It's that hard, and they can only do it after practicing, working their way up to it, and get maybe 3 or 4 shots a month where they said, I can shoot that arrow 300 yards like those other people. 180 pounds. Wrap your mind around it. The people living right now after Satan was loose, something's messed up with us. And yet our brains are messed up. We want to believe that the bullet that hit Charlie Kirk came in on this trajectory, deflected off a microphone or something, went up, hit the bottom of this one, ricocheted straight down, collapsing all of these vertebrae. It's a lie. If you want to go see Bruce Springsteen, You got to hurry. It's going fast at $7,700. Going fast. So we'll look at some of these things and we'll bump into them. Here's the news of today. My goodness, if we're not, this is the coincidence thing, and I'm going to get into the Bible verse of the coincidence from First Kings chapter 8. Real coincidence. So that it does happen, and this I believe is a coincidence. I think Candace Owens is a charismatic Roman Catholic being used by the machine, but she's that controlled opposition. She's been millstoned. She honestly believes it. And this guy contacted her. This was a coincidence, but the FBI and the CIA were in on it. And now that they're going to get caught, it's too obvious. It's a setup. This is a plan where your Christmas surprise is going to be everything you knew was a lie.
Which you have given me all the documentation for.
Okay.
Maybe get into the sea. It just requires an immediate response. But that is not what Fort Huachuca in Arizona is, okay? It is a hub for intelligence training. Civilians can be turned into intelligence assets on this base. They can take courses to join the intelligence community, okay? Just giving you one example of an email that I got, quote, just FYI, Fort Huachuca is where soldiers go for their MIT courses. That is Army Military Intelligence. Once a soldier has finished basic training, they go here for their advanced training for their actual job in Army Military Intelligence, end quote. Okay, now,
that's a little bit different when I went in the army because it's like, hey, trig, you can be a surveyor. I had to do the regular basic training with everybody else, but then you go to a different school to learn how to do the survey. Then other people go to other schools to be like whatever they do. Like, here's how you fix the omelets that we ate in the morning. This gets much worse, much, much deeper. No, there's this thing you got to hear about what they're teaching at Fort Watsuka.
of 2013. They are two recently baptized Christians. Like I said, they grew up in this area, Sierra Vista, and they decided that they were going to pour their savings into starting a gym. Now, of course, because it's a gym that's located off base, they had a lot of clientele who happened to be associated with the base. And one such client was a woman that they met, a couple that they met that were on fire for the Lord, right?
Turns out they learned how to do it at Fort Watsuka. They were teaching them how to infiltrate, put them on the ground. Uh,
Corroborate this type of training. Two military students, both named blank and blank, I'm redacting that, passed through our gym during this same period. They shared similar stories, but seemed much more advanced in their training. On one occasion, after I asked what was so funny in the back of my class, they privately shared that they had just returned from an overnight field training mission with very little sleep. Their objective had been to deceive civilians in Tucson, about an hour north of us. They practiced at local bars and public venues on unsuspecting people, telling lies, remembering those lies, and maintaining their false personas without, quote unquote, breaking character. They laughed about their conquests while working out at our gym. Now, I got the impression that their deception sometimes extended to sexual encounters with their targets. At the time, I found this disturbing, but I did not know what to make of it. Now, 12 years later, and watching the situation unfold with Charlie Kirk and learning that some of his most trusted people may have been trained operatives who infiltrated Turning Point USA, these memories suddenly seem significant. You mentioned previously that there was a strange military background connection among some of the people involved. I am now wondering if instructors like Bruce Bevins trained some of these individuals before they infiltrated Christian organizations like Turning Point USA. End quote.
wow, man. What are you going to do now? This guy, they made him, it's not a gag order, is it? What did they make you sign one of those gag orders where he got, by coincidence, something happened and he couldn't talk about it until he decided to go to Fort Watsuka. And that day, he saw that guy bury Charlie Kirk's head meeting at Fort Watsuka with the other people that infiltrated because they maybe fake kill him, maybe fake the plot. Something weird.
Has what I would describe as, I don't know if it's the best or the worst luck ever in life, stumbling upon the feds when they're maybe up to no good. Mitch, welcome to my podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here, Candace. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I obviously you know the story of how I instantly got the email from one of your friends that just said you should call Mitch after I prayed and said I'm missing a piece of this. Please, God, give me a piece of the story. And the first email I see when I get back from church on a day of holy obligation is this email. And so, Mitch, my audience is up to date on.
Do you hear how casually and coolly she dropped in her, I came back from church, the day of holy obligation. Yeah, that's a feast day for Roman Catholics that she was not even into until she was swept off her feet on an 18-day romance by a billionaire Roman Catholic. And she said, I'm all in Rome.
And what happened to you when you were 20 years old. And I'm wondering if you can just sort of briefly recap in case I got some things wrong.
Oh wow, briefly recap 35 years. Sure. Yeah, we were part of a mission going down to the border of JTF 6, assigned from 10th Mountain. Um, Previously there had been a Marine Corps unit there. Um, Apparently they had an incident, we had to replace them. And they wanted a less kinetic unit to be involved. So we went down there in a matter of a few days, and I was the youngest guy on the team, and for the first few days, I got assigned to have to, do the hard work of putting in the sensors and following one of the border patrol who was he was on horseback. Got to learn a little bit about picking up signs in the desert, stuff like that, while we were placing these sensors down. It don't understand when units get put together like this, especially this mission. There's a lot of contention even to this day between the Army and Border Patrol and who gets to take credit and who gets to stay, who gets to go. And back then, Border Patrol, I think they just wanted us out of their hair. Um, so they were having some sort of a big meeting, and a big do not disturb meeting. And I got assigned to the skeleton crew to sit back on the SMS, the receiver. Um, and I was looking at the data while the skeleton crew of the Border Patrol was left there with me as well. And he was giving me a bad time about the Army equipment and how they were being sent out
I feel like he was getting to the point so much faster before.
with the Border Patrol. Was actually posed with a photo that was found on the Mexican side um, after the tunnel apparently had been built, um, along with other Mexican military and U.S. military.
Mm.
So there had been some collaboration. Prior to us getting there, there had been a lot of suspicion that uh,
Well, it got deep pretty quick, didn't it?
um, yeah, thank God. He knew what to do. Um, Took me back to base, and they thought it was, something I did to give away my identity. So I was on base for. Uh, it was the next day that I got brought into a briefing, and by that time, the photos from the Mexican side had made their way to the American side, and they were able to put together how my information got fed to the other side. As far as cartels and stuff like that, you know, it's just plain corruption at this point. It's and it's thick. And yeah, they have followed me. There's been I've had people come through my windows. Um, and it's not like I know these are it's like fantastical stories. We got the court documents. We got the
Mm,
court cases.
mhm.
Um,
You've sent them
and
to
it's
me.
not just that we have those. It's that uh, the work that was done to even try to bury those afterward um, is pretty substantial. And yeah, I've got 20 years of this, and you'd think, one would think that somebody in the federal government would care, um, or in any part of our government would care.
Yeah, this is sensational news. It's coming out now right before Christmas because this is when they do it. Uh, it blindsided them with a bunch of layoffs that are coming, probably in the hundreds of thousands, at least the tens of thousands. It's happening now. They're revealing it. He was put in witness protection, hassled, silenced, and on the day he gets, okay, it's been the 35 years. I can talk about it. I better go get the information from Fort Watsuka, where the guy that's the head of Charlie Kirk Security is briefing a meeting of co-intel, co-infiltrators. Am I watching this like on a?
Expires, and you say to yourself, I am going to go down to that base where I was trained. I'm going to go down to Fort Huachuca, book myself
Mhm.
into a hotel. I'm going to go to the criminal division, the investigative division. I'm going to get that original paperwork and get some answers to why my I feel that my life has been effectively ruined for me having done
Mhm.
what I was ordered to do by the government. So you get to the base, and I want you to address this because there were so many people who were like, there's no way you could have gotten onto the base. Obviously, you sent me your military cards, and I think we can show a picture of that. You get onto the base, and I want you to walk us through what time, and I did show a timeline, but about, you don't have to be perfect here. We already showed the timeline, but like you get to the base and just kind of what's your general mood. And this is on
That guy was a spy.
September 8th, the evening of September 8th at the Candlewood Inn and Suites, which you have given me all the documentation for.
Okay. Mm. Yeah, and getting into Tucson, there was a little bit of a issue getting the rental car and stuff, so that took a little while, a little bit of a delay, but we made reservations ahead of time for me to be there. And yeah, I get down to the base. For those that think that people can't get on base, no, typically you can as long as you have your ID, your insurance, and you have a purpose for being. I almost had the impression so much so that I was going to go up and ask him what group he was with and say hi and thank him for his service. I didn't really get that chance. So as I'm checking in and then I go to my room and then come back out, he was joined and joined by a female that you can definitely tell when how do you put it, when people are well off and they're dressing down. Um, she was definitely dressing down, and it was very well kept. Uh, the one thing I noticed about the woman that really stuck out to me was her eyes, and uh, I have an ex that has caused me a lot of problems. So when I see someone with striking blue eyes like that, they stick out. And I was on the phone.
Of water that this is when you accidentally take a video and it's 18 minutes long while this guy's giving you directions, which you've sent everything over, so there's no question.
So it accidentally took a video 18 minutes long and it's all working out. But I'm convinced there are real coincidences somewhere. I'm going to show you one, at least one in the Bible,
And you
uh,
were here and everything
about that Elijah.
happened because you tried to document this thinking you were going to get some justice from the past, and I will let you continue telling the story.
Yeah, I was there to get help. Um, and I was really figuring some people would have have some answers for me. Um, I couldn't find CID, but as I'm wandering around, I finally decided, I need to get some coffee and wake up, maybe have a little breakfast.
I really feel like, is there any way they could perfectly stretch this out? Because Candace Owens does this, what, an hour a day, and it is big news. And this guy, it's like, can you just tell us what happened? It's going on way too long.
Obviously, they were trying to talk to him, and uh, they were sort of palling around, but it was also sort of serious. And some of the military lieutenant colonel.
How hard is it to go? And then I saw that guy Barry come out of the meeting, and he's the guy that's with Charlie Kirk and the extenuating. This takes 5 minutes, and yet so it makes me feel more fishy. Is everything fishy?
And I gave that to you.
You did.
We'll see what that says. But yeah, they were looking for any excuse to try and um, hold me up for like 24 hours. And that 24-hour number kept getting repeated by them. And then eventually they didn't have anything to hold me. I wasn't a harm to myself or others. I wasn't there to, spy on anybody. I really just wanted to get records and get out of that desert. Um, as reminiscent as it was, the place creeps me out a little bit. So, uh, yeah, once they said you have to stay off base for 24 hours, I was.
Brian Harpole. Maybe he's got a brother in the military. Who knows, right? Maybe he does have a doppelganger. He's got a twin brother. Who knows? And I want to be clear. I can confirm on this podcast live every step of your story in terms of where you went, what time you were there, that there was this big meeting that happened. I confirmed the location with other people that are on Fort Huachuca currently. I can confirm everything with metadata. I obviously can't confirm that you saw who you say you saw. If you had to put it at a percentage that you saw Brian Harpole, what percentage would you put it at?
95.
95%. Okay.
95 to 99. I mean, when I saw him, on the interview with his face and.
So this is the news. It's going to come out. In the meantime, there's this going on too. It's the mud flood was Armageddon. This is also computers bringing it out. 10 million subscribers. This was 6 years ago, but we talked about one these monasteries yesterday. This is another one on a nearby island. Turkey claims it, but check it out. It's crazy, man.
The edge of a cliff 1,200 meters above sea level in Trabzon, Turkey. The Greek Orthodox monastery opened its doors in the late 4th century, and now, after a 4-year-long restoration period, the doors of the first section are once again open to visitors.
It's my second time in Turkey, and last time I missed out on this monastery. And luckily, I happened to be here today on the opening day, so I'm pretty excited about it. It looks amazing. So
Included
That's like a coincidence.
several chapels, a library, and a sacred spring. But large sections were destroyed in rockfalls and earthquakes. As part of the restoration process, 4,000 tons of rock and rubble has been cleared away.
For Greece is a big event because this church, this monastery for the Greeks. So we came
Again with the faces cut off of a lot. What's going on here? Why would that be necessary?
here in order to see. I think they have done a very good job here, very good work here, because the monastery was very bad the previous years.
The government is funding the project as part of its efforts to preserve cultural and
It's
religious
that background noise.
The monastery is.
Here's another look at it.
Cleared and hundreds of tons of stone were removed. Restoration work began
on the interior along with improvements to the footpath leading up to the monastery, and continued until it was reopened to visitors in 2021. Its unique features and history helped it enter UNESCO's tentative list for designation as a World Heritage Site in 2000.
In Turkey, especially in this place, we have so many different ethnic groups, religions living peacefully in one place. Having a world where we have a lot of conflicts and where religion is one part of this source, this is a great place to watch to and get an example of it.
Of course, it's dedicated to
Each
the
cultures,
Virgin
each
Mary.
religions, and leads to a better understanding of both religions and cultures, basically.
After the conquest in 1461, Mehmet II issued an edict that the monastery should stay intact and continue its activities. But that is not all there is to it. It boasts 10 chapels, a holy spring, a bell tower, a library, a kitchen, and of course, the monks' dwellings.
We have the feeling that is quite well organized, right? So, I mean, the roads are perfectly designed and it's accessible for everyone. It's documented.
I am as well a Christian.
Legend says that the Greek Orthodox monastery was built between the 4th and 5th century during Theodosius's reign. Its present shape is owing to the Ottoman Empire's major repairs and additions during the 18th and 19th centuries.
Being in a Muslim country, in a place for non-Muslims, for Christians and Orthodox, the biggest impression we have is that it's preserved so well. So, and this leads to a really good understanding of each cultures, each religions, and leads to a better understanding of both religions and cultures, basically.
After the conquest in 1461, Mehmet II issued an edict that the monastery should stay intact and continue its activities. But
So here, a short part about the same place. Was sharing the screen? Yes.
To legend, the king, who fell off his horse in the forest, was found by a woman while he was lying unconscious and was taken to the monastery and treated. That woman is Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. After this incident, Alexios III, whose admiration for the monastery increased, initiated various construction and aid activities. The king watched the solar eclipse in the courtyard of the monastery in 1361. Solar eclipse is a harbinger of big changes, good or bad omens that will come true. He must have been aware of this because he got along well with the Turkish lords and married his 2 sisters and 4 daughters to the Turkmen lords. So why was such a monastery built on such an inaccessible and difficult hillside? Why not in the center of the city, but among the mountains that human beings were once unaware of? In fact, the answer to this question lies in the basis of Christianity. Churches in city centers could not serve the spread of Christianity in villages. This task fell to the monks who devoted themselves to their faith and were detached from worldly life by going into religious seclusion in places far from the center. Monks built small churches in wild lands wherever they.
Did anybody see a small church where they're saying these monks did that? They found it was Virgin Mary? No. Absolutely. This has to be considered. If there's still 6, 7, 8 guys in this room, women, please, there's 5. This is the most important part. This is where all that Virgin Mary really came into existence. And you get to see it. And you'll be.
According to the legend that has been passed down for generations, 2 Christian monks who did not know each other and lived in distant lands saw Mary, the mother of Jesus, in their dreams at the same time. The icon, that is, the picture in which Mary holds the baby Jesus in her arms in her dreams, is where the Sumala monastery is today. Thereupon, the monks who came to the monastery by sea unaware of each other, met there, told each other about the dream they had, and were greatly surprised. This had to be a miracle from God. The picture of Mary holding Jesus in her arms is of great importance for Christianity. Because the person believed to have made this depiction is Saint Luke, who is known to have written one of the 4 chapters of the Bible. And when the monks go to the cave they saw in their dreams, they soon find the picture. In fact, they are not the first to find it. Local people encountered painting much earlier. When the local people find this picture made on a board, they first try to tear it apart, but they cannot. This time they try to burn it, but the fire does not work. Water won't take.
All right, the Greek Orthodox religion is claiming this is the foundation of modern Christianity. When there was Armageddon in our world, these weeds came out selling this baloney. And somehow the Masonic Rosicrucians, rest of their gang, wrote it down. And then they shoved it in our face, rubbed it in our nose.
Away this picture. They also give up and leave. Again, Virgin Mary appears in the monk's dreams and says, "Build me a church here." Thereupon, the monks set out to build the Sumala monastery. Everything started very interesting. It is not easy, nor is it meaningful. Of people, carrying them on their backs, first filled the holes so that a church could be built above. While construction continues, Barnabas, one of the 2 monks, slips and injures his finger. But at that moment something unexpected happens. Water dripping from above healed the injured finger. Maybe this water is sacred and a holy spring will be built there. The belief that the water around the monastery is sacred is also accepted by Muslims.
Okay, well, now it's getting ridiculous. The takeaway is there are caves and systems already built out there that have their own spring, and I'm suggesting the people that are encompassed about and saved by fire will have been living in those places, hiding from the bad guys until they're rescued in relative comfort, because they're being protected by real men who built a place the first time in history. Men, let's beat our swords into plowshares and be alive to give children water without fluoride and to give the old people a helping hand and some food so they could be blessed when Jesus returns for the great white throne of judgment. Here's another little ditty. Then I'm going to show you a real coincidence. Here's another sacred place.
Their most sacred site was that very hill in present-day Arkansas. Many societies have myths about a great flood, but given the Cadouins' geographical reality and the sacred hill, this story might contain an encoded historical event. Custis, one of the leaders of the expedition, was a naturalist, which helped disguise the mission as purely scientific, so as not to piss off the Spanish. Well, they got suspicious anyway, and sent 1,000 soldiers to stop them and turn them around. They were tipped off by 2 members of Jefferson's own cabinet, James Wilkinson and Aaron Burr. Yeah, the same guy who...
Yeah, those guys from 1803, sending 1,000 Mexican army guys on horses and full armor, gonna go whatever you're up to. This guy, isn't he on the TV? He's one of those funny guys on the TV.
Who killed Lin-Manuel Miranda in a duel. It gets worse. Aaron Burr may have been plotting to set up his own country. A story for another day, but did this guy ever stop being a douche? Custis still managed to make valuable botanical discoveries. You diehard FSH fans would love to know that he found outcroppings of Jimson weed, a potent hallucinogenic. To learn about some soldiers who got hilariously high on this plant, watch the video here. He also described the bois d'arc tree, which local natives used to make excellent bows for hunting. This tree creates shoots at its base that become thickly interwoven, and white settlers would use this to create living fences for livestock before barbed wire. Another find, the great mullein plant, known in some.
All right. So it was the Osage orange thing. The Cherokee, everybody used that same tree to make the proper bow and arrows. We're going to get into bow and arrows big time. This is for history. And she became a pillar of salt. She became my wife. She became his wife. Uh, the earth became where gnats were. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Japheth. Something had come upon them. It did come upon them. This is that way high word. Looking at it, let there be light. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. I was looking at it in a lot of different ways. I'll spare you that, but I know it came to pass telling the woman of the dead. Here's that coincidence I was going to tell you about. Let's look at the Berean standard. Gehazi, a man who ended his life with leprosy, but otherwise had a pretty good record of hanging out with some very powerful people, got a little greedy at the end. And Gehazi was telling the king how Elisha had brought the dead back to life. Just then, the woman whose son Elijah had revived came to appeal to the king for her house and her land. So Gehazi said, my lord, the king, this is the woman. This is the son Elisha stored to life. Is it? Does the English Standard say, "Behold, my lord"? I thought that was one. You need a little more detail there. I don't blame you. Okay, so here's the whole thing. Elisha told the woman whose son had been restored to life, "Arise, you and your household, go and live as a foreigner wherever you can." There was this 7-year period of famine. That's why she was going back like, hey, remember when we were all sent away by Elisha? We were told to come get in line and, make our appeal. Wow. How about that? That's a real coincidence. So the women proceeded as the man of God had instructed. Good thing. Women returned after 7 years and said, hey, I got to go see the king and get in line. And now the king had been speaking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, please relate to me all the great things Elisha had done. There you go. Coincidences are possible. Hey, there was this other thing I looked at in that the caravans of Tema when I was going for that. When Lot's wife, do we know her name? Looked back. I'm looking up that word. Looked back, and I saw caravans of Tema. I must have searched it. I know I did. Hey, look! Behold! Hey, look! Look over there. Saul looked. Here's the Bible verse I was looking at. She became a pillar of salt. No doubt. It means salt. Look at me. La. 14 out of 28. Seriously, this is when you talk about a strong root word and we can relate to prefixes and suffixes, I know you can. Some of you have even diagrammed sentences. It's salt, man. And of course, humans can turn to salt. Salt is a mineral, and we live off the salt of the earth. Maybe she wasn't all bad. She had a longing. She looked back longingly, would appear. She became salt. It's like looking back. She became Watahai. It doesn't that remind you of that other one, way high? That's what I was hoping that because that word is so close here. I don't know if there is a trick in the Hebrew because I'm not an expert in the Hebrew. Feel I'm done okay. I'm ready to learn, keep learning, was without form, let there be light. That's the root. This is going to happen by coincidence. It's going to seem like a coincidence. Then it happened, but it was God doing it. Became the beginning of his kingdom. Genesis 10:10. Is that the Nimrod thing? Won't take long to find out. Nimrod. Yeah. So he had a kingdom. He was just a regular guy that had a kingdom. And it was that time when it was becoming. But the word, it just struck me because we were just looking at a lot of these type of she became but looked and I see they are, behold, consider, look down, she looked down, the whole behold, consider, she looked back, she was considering, oh, my daughters were going to get married, we were going to have a big party, and then those guys wanted to rape the angels. Things got weird, right? Oh, what would that wedding have been like? She's salt. Real salt. Real salt. I'm trying to experiment with my voice and see, do I like that one? I don't know how long they can, be like going, he had not observed misfortune, or you will see the distress and think there's a difference. I don't know. But it's a short verse. She became pillar. We didn't look at that. That's got the 333 thing. This said, how many times were you used? 3 out of 12 becoming a pillar of salt. Uh, Way to go, Samson. You, Jonathan. Oh, this is Samuel and David. Uh, it was a garrison. Wait, pillar. The strong armed descendants of Lot. They were kind of a genetic mystery. The whole pillar thing. What is it? What do we got going here? The pillar of salt, Philistine garrison, garrison, garrison. Stop it. Oh my goodness. Now it's the only deputy was in the land. The king of Bashan's garrison. And he was the only one who, oh, this, like the Bible isn't long, hard, and complicated enough. Apparently, the caravans of Tema, there is a land of Tema. They claim, they don't know, I guess. It's a place mentioned in the Bible where Ishmael's sons ended up. Maybe some, I don't know, Lot's incestuous offspring, weren't they Moabites and Ammonites? So this whole Muslim thing, that's a joke. There's no such thing. That's a made up thing to play off that, Jerusalem should be there and people fight about it. Bible mentions it several times. I didn't know really it mentioned it that many times. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Obadiah, Amos, and Genesis 36. That's a vague. Outside the Bible, that this same land is mentioned as a place where friendly people give away water. And when it was finally, you know, this Jewish committee, when this guy and his friends decided to rebuild the temple because God had showed him that Jesus was the true God and creator of the universe, and that's where you worship the real God. So Cyrus and Artaxerxes, they all built the thing and sent him there. They didn't need this guy to run this place anymore. So it's not like he got fired. They just didn't need him there anymore in this place. So there is this place. It's in 11 languages where they talk about Carmina, the land of Tima, mentioned in the Bible, early Bronze Age. They're faking it. But these guys, and the king of Babylon, they said, build the doggone, rebuild the temple. We'll pay for it because we want the people to understand, for crying out loud. The one guy was turned into the mind of a beast for 7 years. He got the point when it was like revealed to him. I am telling you, this is the guy. I should have believed him after the lions didn't eat him. That's a good one. And then it was, Artaxerxes too, because he was the Persian king. They had the Babylonians and the Persians and the Medes, and all their laws agreed. Go worship in Jerusalem, for crying out loud. And on your way there, you can go to Tima. And that's where they had the free water. I think I got a video about that coming up. If not, they're there. Hey, look. Do you see all those spooky skulls? What's with that? I don't know what's going on in these places where they worship Mary. Pretty nice. That's big. They built that on the mountain because they found a painting.
Χώρο που εμείς εδώ στο Άγιο Όρος τον έχουμε ιδιαίτερη ευλάβεια και το λέμε και φιλοσοφική σχολή.
Okay, now what is this? How they get the people in there and they try to trick them into, okay, now you pull down your pants. That's what these guys are about.
Ο Χρήστο τώρα θα δεις και κάτι που δεν το έχουμε συνηθίσει εσείς στον κόσμο έξω. Εδώ στο Άγιον Όρος, όταν ο μοναχός κοιμάται, δεν λέμε πεθαίνει, κοιμάται γιατί περιμένουμε να ξανααναστηθεί, τον τοποθετούν αφού γίνει η εκταφή του εδώ μέσα στο κημητηριακό ναό, όπως είναι δίπλα, γίνεται η ακολουθία και η εκταφή του και τον βάζουμε εδώ στις θήκες. Βλέπεις εδώ πέρα υπάρχουν τώρα πολλά κρανία μοναχών, τα οποία άλλα είναι του ηγουμένου, άλλο είναι μοναχού.
Man, I've heard it taking the mark on your forehead, but I thought it was supposed to be or maybe this ain't it. This is just a way that the weeds infected everything. Byzantine time. That's why the shadows don't work. I guess there's 6 hours. I really wanted to see the skulls, because we have to get into this. Is this that plant that they make the bow and arrows out of? It is. I don't like that being there. It's a multiple fruit, but that's not really the big deal about it. The history is that when Lewis and Clark and the other 4 missions that were sent out by Thomas Jefferson, the known child raper of his own, his own children. He'd rape them because he thought they were slaves and they were white. They were, well, 1/32 black. To me, that's white. But it's rape. It's wrong from Jump Street. But anyway, it was for the bow and arrows here on these things. And it was a phenomenon. The Cherokee used it. These guys used it. It was a great wealth. They could control those trees. It wasn't the yummy. I don't even know if the fruit is yummy, but I couldn't believe it. It was just another thing of where certain woods are better. It only grew in this area, but it was used all over the place. Huh. Refresh my memory with this. Partis securta vitrum. Literally, that which is born follows the womb. Okay, this was the legal way that you could say these guys on the left would be saying, look, you're a slave, you had a baby, anything that comes out of your womb, we can rape. She was raised like that. She had been not caught for like 20 years. She had a daughter, and when they showed up to say, no, she's a slave, we're taking her, she killed her daughter. That's the legend, because she wasn't about to let her daughter go through what she had gone through. That is a legal thing of that word. Here is an example of where the breed slaver parts with his own first flesh to a trader down south in the heart of, can't read it. Thus, trader and breeder secure without fail the lasting attachment of him with a, not, it looks like tail, but I can't be sure, who owns the small soul of that thing called a man. Make America great again. If you try, you're going to have to explain this to a lot of people, that's why this was not the way they did it in other countries. You can't rape your own children because they were born of slave. Let's see here. But other similar legal doctrines of inheritable, you're a slave for life, also derived from the civil law operated in all of the white countries that owned colonies in other countries, but they were established by the British, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Dutch, Japanese, China, white people who had no problem. If you were darker, you're going down, doobie, do down. But the Spanish didn't rape their own children. They did enslave and colonize everyone, but they had a different mahistes, or another name for it. Starts with an M. There's no good guys, though. Okay, we got that. Here's another weird word. Personal property. What is it? Should it be hard? Movable? Huh. Okay, personal property is property that is movable. Property, really? Come on. Property is a system of rights. That's not movable. Personal property is movable. Huh. Common law systems, personal property may also be people that are born in slavery or their personality. In civil law systems, personal property is often called personal property because it moves, or it's movables because it moves. It's property, the system, but you can move it like a like a person. That means a slave is somebody born slave. They'll never be anything but a slave. You can move them, but then they had to go like, what about state line? What about like free state, slave state? That's when it got tricky. Un momento. Personal property. There's intangibles. You got to watch out for those. There's tangibles. Are we in? Which one do we want? Intangibles or tangibles, or do we have to watch out for them? Tangibles, furniture, clothing, orange juice. That you get an option on it. It's tangible, man. Intangible security services or intangible assets like would be a security vague. They could be more vague, but they don't know how. Mortgage, common law, vague, tangible, security interest. However, a hypothec is a device to secure real rights because it's hypothetical. Jurisdictions that are de jure or de facto. It depends on them whether you would want personal vis-a-vis private movable property like in a social relationship. These guys, Freemasons that started the argument, who's going to believe all this? I best move on to another complicated doctrine of the worthier title. I'm not going to hang out here. I just wanted you to know this whole common law thing, they have clauses and, well, you had it, but then there's this doctrine of the worthier title, the legal doctrine that preferred taking title to real estate by descent over taking title by movable property or by purchase device. It essentially provides that a remainder cannot be created in the grantor's heirs, at least not by those words, because those are not magic words. So whenever they want to argue about it under the feudalism system, they would take their friends to court. They wouldn't do they were weeds. Simply wanted you to know that out there is something that will affect your inter vivos gifts less than free simple interest. And it's called the doctrine of the worthier title. They want to try to throw you in Bible, Caleb, Dinah, Adam's heir apparents. They don't know what they're talking about. It's a way to screw you over with words. Hey, they got a word purchase. Here's another one of their common law that they could use in common law to say, yeah, but you didn't know about this one. You didn't know about the rule in the Wild case from 1599, did you? Well, sorry, we can't work that out because Watson versus Maurice in 1604, the warranty deed from way back in the day. Oh, well, I have a warrant of possession. You're rid of habeas corpus. You can fart in their general direction. You bury them? Is a register of fief ownership. It includes the rights and benefits that the fief holder has over his serfs and peasants. It's the cornerstone of their 1535. Here's the weeds are separating from the tares. This isn't real property laws. This is only one page because it starts out with one that goes with an A. Abolition of the federal. They said enough of that BS. We got new way of looking at things. So it went from all that time to 2001. Ask RJ. We're not going to get pushed off that. September 11th, 2001. You could go find another date. Bring it to me and let's see what we got. All we know is that in the mid 70s, they rebuilt this bridge. So they say it was an orphan bridge. I guess if you fix an orphan bridge, it's yours. If there is an abandoned bridge somewhere and you fix it, according to these guys from yesterday, knowing I'd be interested in it this morning. Oh, no, it's from November 1. 2023. Orphan bridges. Last month, hundreds of commuters found themselves routed around the Central Avenue Bridge as it completed the first phase of its new higher voltage power line. This was an orphan bridge, according to 34B of this administrative code. Something brought it back full circle. Orphan bridges are subject to repairs and improvements by the utility companies, which frequently need to access power lines. Now, at least, the Central Avenue Bridge is still holding up and serving its intended purpose. Who paid for it? The bridge sees a ton of traffic every day. 90 years old or 900 years old? Anyway, orphan trains. I thought, because I always say orphan train brain, this guy did it. He was the guy that founded St. Louis, one of those rags to riches guys, merchant, fur trader, would have been there when the Lewis and Clark went through. Ended up being a big deal, even, born in New Orleans, still under French's control. That's why it's the St. Louis, and there's so many other towns, like Albuquerque. The Louisiana Purchase, where I live, it used to be Mexico. It was never part of the Louisiana Purchase. But supposedly he did it, went to the Star Fort, West Point back in the day, ended up in here, a river baron. It's how the French controlled the river. And then they sold it in 1803, but these powerful people stayed behind. He was a negotiator for long times. So that looks like a pretty nice house. It was that easy. That's what they say. Oh, and I some close-ups of that again. These are people that survived. And then they were taken over by the wheats and the tares grew up together. They turned it into some sort of Mary worshiping. So here is that Mary Rose. Get a load. Now is the time, and I have been sharing, where the unbelievable strength, they found bows and arrows on these ships that maybe 2 or 3 people in the world can do a couple of times a month, but it messes them up. So during that 1,000-year reign, people were in shape, man. There was something different. The Mary Rose. I don't know, Rocky, but check this out. This ship went down. Wait till you see some of the cannons. What type of people did this? This weak looking, Henry the Eighth, ain't. That is a star fort. This is, they even look small compared to what, but they had armadas. Armadas. That's pretty big in a pretty big building. So they found it. It went down and they found, wood, rope. It was preserved in the mud, the rigging. It's a big deal because it was a fairly surprise. It was a recent thing. People had been looking for it, and then all of a sudden there it was. Okay, really? In the 1400s, they were doing this and shooting it up from wooden boats with people that could do bow and arrow strength that would take, honestly, I cannot conceive it. I have been like one of those guys that has been into exercise and stuff most of my life. I could never dream of like like moving these around of saying we could do this. This is wrought iron. And these are the reproductions of what are on board. They probably don't want you to see how fancy the real ones are. But they found these things. And it was, here's the vice admiral. Remember this guy? The vice admiral, the contemporary miniature. This was found on him. Huh. Perished with him. Contemporary miniature. Oh, the guy that painted his picture is that guy that sent the hidden messages it with his paintings. That Hans Holbein. He was so good, he could. This is his most famous one. If you take this skull and stand at a certain angle, it's loading. I know it's frustrating because it should load easier. Let's see if I can, if it opens in a new tab any faster. Must be too big. I'm not going to dwell on it. But this is a skull if you stand at a certain angle. This looks like the guy who painted it. Everything's mysterious on here. It has all of the finest things before, right around the time of Leonardo da Vinci, those guys. And it's just a very important guy to find, on the Mary Rose. It confirms a lot of different things. But these ships that could carry those type of spiral fluted barrels had brick ovens on them. They had a lot of them. Crews that were ready to go, and they lived in star forts when they went on shore. They found these things. Maybe even these ships they found. But we can't do their bow and arrows. The Worshipful Company of Barbers, again, it was a painting by that guy. Because they were the ones in charge. They were going to say, this is how white people are going to rule the world. And at the end, who cares? We're going to build up this country called the United States of America and throw them under the bus. But it took a lot of work, but they preserved it. And they're building, but plain bowls, fancy cannons. The story of my life. We'll get back to that. This guy was a real bad man, and he was on a famous TV show that was funny, that show Coach. But oh my goodness, it's like he may as well have murdered his wife. Compare, according to Crazy Days and Crazy Nights, short video, we'll sample it.
Which ended in mysterious tragedy back in December of 1997. The scene is Winchell's Donut House, South Pasadena. The Hollywood freeway would soon be clogged with rush hour traffic. But at 5 a.m., the streets sat still in poignant anticipation for the coming day. Nance, already drunk, maybe still drinking, found his way into the Winchell's parking lot, and soon thereafter mouthed off at a group loitering outside. Surly in nature and eager for a reaction, Jack Nance proceeded to beach the day after the fight, sporting a black eye. He then retired to his modest apartment that evening and died of a subdural hematoma caused by the blow to his head. The coroner ruled a verdict of homicide due to blunt force trauma. And Nance was 53 years old. A man dedicated to his craft, Jack Nance caught the eye of David Lynch in 1972 when Lynch was embarking on Eraserhead. The pair had an electrifying connection, leading to Nance's enviable talent for channeling unusual characters. And David Lynch describes Jack as having a dry, self-deprecating sense of humor. Self-destruction was only beginning. During shooting for Lynch's Blue Velvet in 1986, Jack told newly sober co-star Dennis Hopper that he was going to jump out of his hotel window if Hopper didn't help him. Hopper responded by putting Nance on a plane to LA, plying him with liquor, and once there, he checked Nance into a rehab. Nance also found love again. It was in rehab where Jack first met Kelly Van Dyke, who had been battling addiction problems of her own and trying to shed unsavory connections to the adult industry. Jack was convinced he could help keep her clean, and the couple married in 1991. It wasn't long, however, before Kelly slipped back into old habits. Jack told her that he couldn't go on watching her destroy herself and that he wanted out of the relationship. She told him that she was going to unalive herself if he hung up on her, and moments later, a power surge due to a terrific storm took out the line, and the phone went dead. And Kelly Van Dyke was found having unalived herself, and through the following years, Jack resumed drinking heavily, lived in a hotel before being thrown out for firing a gun at the TV, and starred in a number of unmemorable films. Well, in 2018, February 12th to be exact, I had this blind item. It's from an unpublished interview in 1990.
I do not believe that's Kelly Van Dyke. I think that's another actress, but the story could be true.
The magazine, which is a monthly magazine, is known by all of you, fact-checked the story. They refused to publish it, though, because they didn't want to ruin the lives of the men involved, based on the recollections of a person they knew would have had her past actions called out. One of the editors also said that at some point, the woman, Kelly Van Dyke, gave consent to the sex. She couldn't. She was barely a teenager. There was no consent. And the father that the reporter and the subject were discussing was Jerry Van Dyke. And basically, Robert Mitchum is in the interview, permanent A-list, mostly movie actor, who was a longtime family friend of Jerry Van Dyke. And the subject unalived herself about a year after this interview. And the reporter asked, when did it first begin? And she said, I was about 12. My dad came in my room sometime during the night. He was drunk and told me it was time for me to grow up, and crawled into my bed and did very bad things. Was that the only time? Well, from that point forward, whenever he would get drunk, I knew he would be coming after me. I started spending to an adult star who did a film with Kelly Van Dyke. She told him that Gene Hackman was also involved. But in this particular case, I'm just talking about Robert Mitchum, because that was when the magazine interview to do to me. Well, how many times did Robert Mitchum come over? At least 5 or 6 times. One time, my dad everywhere. I hate my life and I hate living. And in 1991, like I said, apparently upset over marital problems, she unalived herself in her North Hollywood uncle, of course, Dick Van Dyke. And the National Enquirer reported that after Jerry Van Dyke's success with Coach, Kelly, who was a struggling actress, appeared in a lesbian adult film entitled The Coach's Daughter. Billing herself as Nancy Kelly, she went public when she did the film to embarrass 33. Now, Jerry Van Dyke said this was a death directly related to alcohol and drug abuse. I did everything I could to help her. She had extensive therapy, was in various substance abuse programs, but she always reverted back to her self-destructive pattern. Now there's nothing I could do. Well, Kelly's body was found by her close friend, Lisa Loring. You know the name? She played Wednesday Addams on The Addams Family in the mid-1960s. In her interview with the Enquirer just before her death, Kelly said, I was desperate to get my father's attention, and when I didn't get it, I went wild. I was an alcoholic. I began having sex when I was 11. I even went to a wild Hollywood party, was drinking heavily. I came on to a major movie star, and we ended up having sex. When my father found out about my alcohol and sex problems, he forced me to live with my grandmother. But Lisa Loring said, hey, she started doing adult films to get back at her father. To release her adult films exploiting Jerry's name, he said, I know my daughter.
To the time of the Emperor Nero's reign, and this is much earlier than expected. I've invited dig director Mike into the lab.
I wanted to make sure that you heard that. Like, they're talking about the Emperor Nero.
So whether this is specifically a ladies' area, if we're finding the jewellery, the hairpins, the weaving tablets, a rather lovely find.
As the archaeologists delve deeper, they're beginning to reveal astonishing details of the form and fabric of the bathhouse itself.
The quality of the masonry, the preservation of the blocks and the bricks is absolutely superb. I mean, nowhere else, not even within Silchester, will you get preservation of this quality.
And as the dig reaches its third week, the team hit the water table with astonishing results. Water begins to flow through the drains just as it would have done 2,000 years ago. With the foundations in such great condition, the team now hopes that they'll be able to answer the real question at the heart of their mission. When was the bathhouse built? Frustratingly, this key fact has eluded them so far. But on the last day, the archaeologists finally find the evidence they need.
It looks like we found what we were hoping for from this excavation, and that is a Nero stamped tile. When we use these tracings from existing tiles that we have, the circle fits exactly with the inner and the outer circles, so it's exactly the right dimensions to be a Nero tile.
The stamp dates the tile securely to the time of the Emperor Nero's reign, and this is much earlier than expected. I've invited dig director Mike into the lab to discuss the significance of this surprise.
Mike, you've re-excavated this bathhouse, but what you've done is found this really important bit of dating evidence that you've actually got a Nero tile associated with the bathhouse for the first time.
Yes, that's right. And this is the only place in Britain where we have these tiles.
So with Nero's name, what date does that give us?
Well, it must be sometime after 54. Nero
Yeah.
became emperor in 54. The initial invasion began in 43. So sometime, within the first 20 years, they're building.
This is all slow, sustained effort to get you to trust that the mud flood was Armageddon, trust of the Bible, earth-shattering. This guy was doing that cold fusion, and he got murdered. Then that guy did the Browns University murder also, but they're revealing everything now because it's a coincidence, it's convenient.
What it was that he had discovered or was about to reveal. And if it was going to be a discovery about free energy, well, that's not new news. The question is, what had he discovered? What was he about to announce? And when you think of the fact that he was responsible for MIT fusion and plasma division, that opens up the possibilities to not just free energy, but what's plasma? What is the energy that he's studying? It has to do with the sun, it has to do with the moon, it has to do with so many things that he could have been just about to reveal. And thus, there's a good motive for.
Who thinks that this guy is going to mention flat Earth and a dome? Then you must have already seen it, because I was shocked.
Silencing him.
I've spoken to sources here on the show, members of the military, members of the U.S. military, whistleblowers, and others who've worked on the secret space program. My viewers know them well. We have a big interview that's coming out this week on that topic specifically. They've seen this plasma technology in action, at least specifically within the secret space program, within the confidential halls of the military, in a military capacity or otherwise. So a civilian, by all accounts, at MIT gets close to discovering or harnessing what we already know we have. And therein lies the conflict, no?
Absolutely. And it reminds me in a way of CERN, where the stated objective is XYZ, but really they're doing something completely different. I don't know if you can recall back in the day, maybe 15 years ago, when there was a reporter interviewing the director of CERN. And she was enthusiastically saying, you've spent billions on this facility, yet the world has people who are starving and homeless. Wouldn't this money have been better spent doing some good to society as opposed to smashing atoms. And the gentleman continues to defend what the purpose of CERN is all about, to find out how the universe began. This goes back and forth and back and forth, and she's agitating him to no end. And finally, he just blurts out, well, what price would you put on time travel? And she said, did you just say time travel? And so thus, that whole interview has been scrubbed. It's gone. And you have to wonder, was Nuno really about to come forward with something to do with free energy? Or was it even more abstract than that?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. Maybe you could educate our audience a little bit if you can. I don't know, if, from a scientific perspective, what would maybe some of like this plasma study and why this is so maybe important?
Well, plasma and fusion has so many different ramifications. Nuclear energy. It has to do with, I mean, there are those who believe strongly that the moon is plasma, right? You know, the moon, you've never seen the dark side of the moon because it doesn't rotate. There are those who believe that the moon is plasma and shows a snapshot of the known and unknown continents on Earth. And it's not 248,000 miles away. The sun, which Nuno was studying, is not 93 million miles away. What if he was about to reveal that the sun and the moon are within the snow globe of our Earth that we know as the firmament? There's no telling what it was that he had discovered or was about to reveal. And if it was going to be a discovery about free,
I wish I didn't take an hour and a half to get to the point of where I'm showing you that the explaining of the bewilderments is coming out now. Did you hear what the man just said? Unredacted. They get these views in the hundreds of thousands. And he's talking about what we've known for so long. They're doing it for a reason right now. As I interrupt, the last third of the show, pray with me. Heavenly Father, we understand that this is our time to rely on you. Heavenly Father, give us no delusions of grandeur, but let each one of us, men and women, start with presenting our bodies as temples, living sacrifices. Father, let us go beyond the golden rule of treating others like we would wish to be treated and understand James chapter 4 that to know to do good and do it not is counted as sin. Father, we've come to you believing in our heart, confessing with our mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, and pray for your blessings and steadfast love to be upon us. Amen. So we'll get back to that other thing.
energy. Well, that's not new news. Those who have investigated what Tesla was really up to have known about harnessing of the ether to create free energy. And there's whole schools of thought today about how in recent times, architecture of a world that remains in front of us, we see every day as we walk and drive to work, harness this free energy, but that has been deconstructed. So
By deconstruction, he means it's a reset and it's been reintroduced and reverse engineered. I believe I'm going to have to start a new tab. Hit that because I want to see if it comes right up in my algorithm. Somebody got squished like a grape.
Moments, if you will. But was it too fast moving? Talk to us about weighing again that provided
Yeah.
information to the public.
with an armed and dangerous individual and vehicle use that involved multiple license plates and your decision not to sort of real time inform the public?
Yeah, so we knew yesterday, last night, who this guy was and that he had rented a car in Boston. So the question becomes, is he going to return the car to Boston? We got information he might return it to Connecticut. He didn't return it at all.
This is that guy, that MIT guy. He's the guy that murdered him. It took him 5 days to find the guy, but while we've been on the air, it looks like they're announcing they found the murderer of the guy who was going to expose cold fusion and the domed earth.
But when we thought he might be returning it to the information, to the locations, we wanted to try to take him without him knowing we were coming. As soon as his name gets out there, he's...
The problem, the doggone problem is that unlike these other guys, he like Luigi Mangione and Charlie Kirk, he doesn't go to McDonald's, sit down with all of the incriminating evidence and order food and wait for the cops to be like, oh, they found me. Oh no. Somehow this guy hid because they needed it until right now. Not because this was a smarter guy. This is the guy in plasma, flat earth. Something's going on. This is not going to be for them what they'd like to call a Merry Christmas.
Is the firmament. There's no telling what it was that he had discovered or was about to reveal. And if it was going to be a discovery about free energy, well, that's not new news. Those who have investigated what Tesla was really up to have known about harnessing of the ether to create free energy. And there's whole schools of thought today about how in recent times, architecture of a world that remains in front of us, we see every day as we walk and drive to work, harness this free energy, but that has been deconstructed so that things like electricity providers and energy providers can profit.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's all about profit. And again, I don't know if you heard the top of this segment that I've heard from sources today who told me that he was getting too close to a couple of energy, should I say, he was agitating some energy companies with his work. So I'm not surprised. And
he is going to be even more in the wind. And so the question becomes, if you think you might know where he is, right? Eventually you find the storage unit, right? So you're following that up. But initially you think he might return the car to Boston on Atlantic Avenue, I believe, or in Connecticut, perhaps to board a flight somewhere. You're weighing, can I take this guy because we know where he's going to be, and not alert him that we're coming. And so I would say this afternoon, we were going back and forth on that. But as the FBI and the ATF and our other partners, Providence Police, State Police.
So are they patting themselves on the back? Did they got him? It was this guy?
The Brown Daily Herald reported that you had a vote of no confidence in your leadership, and students were concerned for their safety and the fact that you had prioritized desk jobs over having over field jobs and having more people patrolling the campus. Now, in light of this, do you accept any?
I know, I can't hear it either. Let's just see what the answer, what's going on.
Are you going to reevaluate how the Brown police operate in the future now, so this doesn't happen again and these students can feel more safe on campus when they return?
Great. So as I stated earlier, I'm profoundly proud of the men and women of public safety and profoundly proud of our police department We will continue with the heroic work that they've done and continue to work side by side with our partners. And everything else that comes with that is a continual effort to do what is best for the safety and security of our campus.
But will you reassess how the people are allocated within your department?
Leaders from Rhode Island, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts all contributed to this result. I also want to thank Attorney General Pam Bondi for her support in coordinating the federal response.
Can you tell us anything about his motive and the two sets of victims and how they might be?
Again, with you can't understand them. But so the free energy aspect is it's dead, it's gone. They got the murderer. I'm sure it's some politics and stuff. Here's the English longbow. 6 foot 6 inches long with 105-pound forced draw. We'll have to look at this. This guy knows a little bit about it.
Were they as powerful as the bows 100 years before at Agincourt? Were they more or less? We'll never know. One thing that kind of gets me. So it's close on 60 years I've been shooting the longbow, right? And I'll tell you this, I've never cared a jot what poundage you are, you know, in your bow. But I have shot 100-pound bows. I think I managed to draw one 120-pound draw weight, and I didn't like it. But I've shot with men, Mark Stretton, great pal of mine way back. He and I cutting our teeth at Warwick Castle on heavyweight bows and shooting over 300 yards. Wow, what an experience. But I've been injured in the spine in the military. I have to be careful, and I like to be comfortable. So if I have a heavy old bow, I remember Don Adams, bless him, I've still got the bow, it's behind me, well over, I think it's 7'4" in length, and it was almost as thick as your wrist. It was ridiculous. So as the bowman, I says to Don, can you take a little bit off here? Can you take a little bit off there? Because if you look at the Mary Rose bows, many of them were stored in cases. Had they been issued, or were they spare bows? Now, just like the bowmen of years ago, shave the bow down, make it comfortable so it suits you. As long as that arrow can be drawn and can be shot that distance, then you're in. I am sure at Agincourt they didn't go, have you got any arrows that are spined 3/8 or, you know, whatever? Yeah. They were just given arrows to shoot. It's ammunition. And as for shaving the bows down, my rifle, when I was in one unit in Northern Ireland, I was uncomfortable with my rifle.
I think he is trying to make excuses for why their bows had 180-pound draw. Why they, you know, not getting into their super big cannons. People, I wanted to mention it when they were showing what they were uncovering in that one with the Nero tiles, and it was flowing down it. They were going to show that it was part of a hypocaust, where the men of that time in the golden age, where they could draw those bows that we could only dream about today, everybody was practically, if you want to vote, you're going to go to the hypocaust, you're going to sweat, you're going to prove your strength, or you don't care about your body as a temple. Isn't that what it, why else was it so important that during the golden age, what do we find? They all were sweating, stretching, and eating organic. Now, I know grown men don't need massages by 13 and 16-year-old girls like the Epstein, but you can massage yourself. You can sweat, stretch, get your body firing on all cylinders, because, brothers in Christ, you're going to need it soon. Here's another guy talking about art. He believes his art getting him banned from the YouTube. I want to look at it. I want you to see
crap,
it.
and then they end up producing nothing because no one wants to buy it except the corrupt people that have ruined the art game. So again, art has been ruined and targeted so much. You think about the music nowadays, it's nothing compared to old world music. It is absolute filth. Taylor Swift, everybody in almost every direction that's popular and making a bunch of money has some element of satanic drivel, filth, anti-human crap associated with it. That again, personally, when I hear stuff that's popular nowadays music, it makes me nauseous, makes me sick, makes me want to throw up, makes me immediately have to turn it off or leave the room. It's like a weapon, and that's what I see it as. And the music that I listen to and play around the house is amazing. My daughter, since I've been playing ukulele and guitar all the time and playing interesting music, my daughter has a musical comprehension that's unlike anything. There's zero Western influence in it. It is a magical, and she could sing for 9 hours straight and probably never repeat a melody. It's absolutely fantastic, and that's the way this culture was. Look at all these artworks, every single thing. And don't delude yourself into thinking that because these things are gray and sepia colored, that they weren't once colored magnificently. I'm willing to believe they were not only colored with amazing paints that were probably very pure with them. You can't do something this beautiful and shockingly amazing with ill intentions. It just doesn't, it will come off terribly. This stuff is perfect. It's mathematically perfect. It shows an absolute, and that is the main power that we have as humans. I believe, I don't follow any religions. Again, I am an artist, and that is my religion, creativity. And I think that is the life source of this universe. It makes me feel healthy. It powers my immune system. Every single day of my life, I've been creative. Every single one from like maybe age 7 on, because I love.
You see how people, he thinks his religion is the creativity. He's not going to go down that 440 route. I'm praying that he has a born again experience and Christ opens his eyes. In the meantime, what do you think he's salt? He kind of, I don't know. We got to figure it out.
So many different ways. Look at this. This all, again, these mandalas have a magical purpose when they're creating or when they're being looked at. All of these do. These buildings, look at the color, look at the perfection of this. Look at imagine the team of artists that created do that, the team of artists that prepared the artwork to do that, and the ones that executed it, and how long it would take. These things, the architecture is their art. They went from doing things on canvas and paper.
Say, spectacular, genuinely spectacular. The fact now that you walk in and you get a story and you get a really good, a well-told story, really sets you up for actually going in and.
And the Visits of Antiquity raise, we are transported back 475 years to July the 19th, 1545.
1809, when I, Henry VIII, that name became King of England. Come closer, everyone. Come here. That's it. Come beside me. I'm not as scary as I look. Come closer. I have much to tell. I was near 18 when I came to the throne. Yes, that's me up there. Hard to believe, isn't it? My wars at sea have seen no great battles. In fact, our recapture of the line a year ago was fought on land and not at sea. But now my spies inform me that more than 200 French ships are close to England. Their fearsome war galleys harassing my ships and raiding our coast. Against this, I have but 80 vessels anchored here at Portsmouth Haven. Captains, to your ships.
Those really don't look like those big, well, maybe they're pretty big cannons, pretty big ships, beveled. Take a tour. It looks like this.
Literally little portholes that you can see through. What they've managed to get up and salvage, it actually worked out, I haven't been here for 8 years, 2013. Of course, they found an archer. found a Mary Rose Archer. And this is it. This isn't a replica. This isn't a bit of plastic. This is what they actually recovered from the Mary Rose. Obviously, there are pieces missing, given how long it was down there.
So they're saying these are the guys that could pull a 160-pound draw strength bow all day long, not a couple times a month when they huff and puff. Well, you know how they do. Pull it, did shoot it 300 yards ago. I did it. Now my arm's sore. I got to take 5. These guys did it all day.
This is the impression of what they would look like. So again, as we walk down here, we've got the Mary Rose on the left. This is how it happened. You know, this is like, well, this is what we'd have done. This is how we would have gone about it. We can change everything and see how it all is. The glass lift. I've been waiting for it. Wait.
It was brand new. So I took it to the armourer and they measured me and they checked it and put some weights and it was perfect. Yeah. I can see the bowmen of Agincourt shaving bows down or using bows that they've shaved, that they've doctored themselves, or their bow's done it for them. So I can't really answer the question whether bows of Agincourt as powerful or less than the bows of the Mary Rose. In truth, I don't think we'll ever know. But hey, it's a great subject, isn't it? So, any comments, any opinions? Bring them
Here's
on.
my algorithm. More of the live. Of course, they're going to shove Mary Rose down my throat from now on. It's not looking good, man. The Brian Harple twisting, squeezing. What is going on? It's a setup. The artist. Let's close. Let's see what we have here. It's the longbow is big. The Portsmouth, this city where they found it, it's a mud flutter. It has to be. Of course, this is where the king watched it from. There's another ship that has the mini cannons, and it didn't sink. That's Heaven's Light Hour guy. I don't know. But I know they got the star forts. It's the real place. We have a history. It's the mud flood history. It's the Bible true. It's what they covered up. They found everything. These royals here, the royalties. Don't they all seem like they're into weird sexual perversion? It's the same cities that the Bible found. It's the same cities we live in. All of these have, nature doesn't do that. So they're living life there. They got coffee shops. They have jobs. Tend to the tourists. Quietly prepare for war. Has one of the only 3 statues in the whole world to the guy who rewrote history for them, Charles Dickens. Explain away the Oliver Twists and the poorhouses and the orphanages. Yeah, it's bad in his books. Not as bad because it doesn't tell the truth about they're doing the adrenochrome, cooking and eating them, the Battle of Agincourt. So these guys had the archers in the same thing in the Middle Ages where something happened. Wheats against the tares, arguing, fighting to the death over Christianity. Would appear they want us today to believe Rome was a part of the real church and they deserve another closer look. Rome is all about Jesuits. Candace Owens, a Jesuit, and she's breaking all the news that you're not going to be able to turn away from this upcoming Christmas break that's going to go on for a long time. for some of the people who get laid off and then they're told, no, you don't get no job. Orphan bridges, development of Central Park, a lot of these bridges in Central Park. Let's look at some of them. Of course, it's all a reset. This was built after they tore down the Seneca Village, was it? An all black community, brought water from 400 kilometers away, a long way, the Catskills. And some of these orphan bridges, they just fix them up. There's one I want to show you. It's made without any mortar. It says that gravity holds it together. I'm thinking it's the weight of the stones pressing down. There it is. It's one of them. The Huddlestone Arch. Huddlestone is what they named the main Rosicrucian Cathedral. But I wanted to show you these. These are all in Central Park. This is what they did with to cover up the things. Hide it. When, we don't know. That's a mystery. More weird monastery pictures because you need it. You need to know that this is, they're claiming the people that went to the mountains and hid, got out, and built this. And now the whole Greek Orthodox religion is based on the Virgin Mary guiding them to these islands. I think that's fake and gay. The Christian theosophy, yeah, it's the New Age speak in tongue thing that is part of the, Roman Catholics, no hide laws. The stones are going to cry out. Proven. They cried out. It's the same words as they shouted for help. That's how I knew that the stones were going to cry out. They're reserved in judgment. The rafter and the beam will cry out. From Habakkuk 2:1. I believe that's kind of what's happening now. I don't know when. I think it was back then that the Hosea, that knowledge was increased. Now we're only left to figure it out. Woe to him who builds his house by unjust gain. Habakkuk 2:9 starts. Let's continue. To place his nest on high and escape the hand of disaster. You have plotted shame for your house by cutting off many people and forfeiting your life. For the stones will cry out from the wall, and the rafters will echo it from the woodwork. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed. And I think we know that a lot of white nations in that whole, their tea companies, they meant heroin and beaver pelts. Establish a town by iniquity. It is not indeed from the Lord of hosts that the labor of the people only feeds the fire, and the nations weary themselves in vain. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. That's Habakkuk 2, as waters cover the sea. The people just get people drunk so they can look at their neighbor's wife naked. Shame instead of glory. What awake wood, idols, gold, silver. It's the adrenochrome thing we got to watch out for. Uh, of course, they have the art. We all know there's. These are the ones they'll admit to, the out of place artifacts. Aren't they weird enough to just keep you chasing and never come to the realization that the Bible is true? And that's what it all come down to. When they have silver panics, they have silver panics for a reason. And we are going through, whether you know it or not, some people are more prepared and they're not surprised. Now, here is that proof that these guys that did it, these guys, when they decided that one bridge in New York City, remember I showed it to you? I said, I want you to remember that name, Huddlestone. That's what they called it. This Adair thing here, it was, affectionately called Huddlestone by these founders. The monastic, non-monastic, celibacy, neither encouraged nor discouraged, that's their open situation. So that's how I got there. It was somehow, let's go backwards. Well, I guess we can't. But oop arts out of the way, plasma, we covered it all. The Stones crying out. We'll wait and see because they're not done with this Christmas surprise, this storm. I'm not saying it's the end. They're going to have an election. There's going to be something. One thing we can all agree on, I hope. Flat Earth Nation, Golden Age past, mud flood was Armageddon. Somehow our grandparents or parents are in on this. They're the ones that sent you to those schools, like everybody else around I would almost said around the world, because we've all had those globes on our desks. We've all been millstoned, and our parents weren't lobotomized. They weren't institutionalized. They helped raise these orphan trained brain, whatever we are, that can't even pull a regular 40-pound bow. I'll guarantee you, I can do 3 pull-ups, kind of full pull-ups, but I can't pull a 60-pound bow. That's hard. It's going to work. We're not going to be turned to salt. There will be people rescued by fire. To guarantee you're one of those people, you die in faith. You stay faithful to the end. You don't go kill people to show off for your wife. You protect your wife. You stay alive to feed the poor, the weak, and the people who will need it the most. That's my message. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios, amigos. That's how I like to say goodbye from the border of Colorado and New Mexico.